I didn't always know I was doing this, but I spent my entire professional life doing research for this book. South Dakota Public Broadcasting's Laurie Walsh and I will visit about that journey. Life's final season tonight, On Call with the Prairie Doc.
Major funding for On Call with the Prairie Doc has been provided by
Avera is a proud sponsor of On Call on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Larson Manufacturing is proud to support On Call Television as it continues to open doors for important medical information. And by the South Dakota Foundation for Medical Care, the Medicare Quality Improvement Organization for South Dakota. And with the ongoing support of these individuals and institutions, Brookings Health System, Ophthalmology Limited, American Academy of Family Physicians Foundation, and South Dakota Academy of Family Physicians, Avera Heart Hospital, Dakota Allergy and Asthma, CoBank, Fishback Financial Corporation, Vance Thompson Vision, Urology Specialists, Brown Clinic.
Good evening and welcome to On Call with the Prairie Doc. How serendipitous it is that we are talking tonight about life's final season as our South Dakota weather is changing to fall. We're coming to you tonight from South Dakota Public Broadcasting Studio in Sioux Falls. It's a wonderful facility and the South Dakota Public Broadcasting staff is a great help. Thank you to all of you. We also have a live audience of friends who have been gracious enough to join us tonight. We'll be taking questions from the audience, but unfortunately, we do not have the ability to take your calls for this program. First, let's take a look at this week's Prairie Doc quiz question. In my book, Life's Final Season, the most important point about an advance directive or living will is that, 1, in South Dakota, it must be notarized. 2, one should choose a durable power of attorney. 3, they don't work in neighboring states. 4, it's crucial to talk to one's family about one's wishes. We'll have the answer later in the program. Joining us tonight is Laurie Walsh of South Dakota Public Broadcasting. Laurie will be directing our discussion about the end of life and the attitudes and feelings we and our families may have. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you.
So it's your call. This is your show. I don't know why I started it. That should have been you.
What a privilege and honor. Thank you so much. All the years that I've watched you now, to be here next to you on TV is such a gift. And this book is such a gift as well. So tell us a little bit about your writing practice. And you've been working on this for a lifetime.
I really have. I mean, I don't know. Once I got into practice in the 80s, I started sending letters to the editor or, articles for the newspaper. And for a while I was doing once a month articles. But written articles get great scrutiny. And somewhere along the line, somebody asked me to be on the radio. So I think 25 years ago, Joan Hogan was my host, and we were doing once a week radio. And you can say a lot more and get away with it than you can when you write an article that is in the newspaper. Because if you make a nuance in the writing that you do, they call you on it. But I started writing once we started the television show 17 seasons ago. And I would write an essay, a kind of an Andy Rooney type of a thing at the end of the show. And the first book that Judith Peterson, who's in the audience, and I did together was The Picture of Health. And it was the essays that I wrote and her creative artistic photographs. And that was a fun little adventure, coffee table book, and we give that to our guests. And I think most of the guests that are in the audience who would have been my guests all have a couple, 3 or 4 copies of it in their house or in their waiting room. But when you write an essay a week, more than 30 weeks out of the year, it piles up. And somebody came to me and said, you should write a book about how to care for our aging parents. And that's what got me started. And then I put together a lot of the essays. That's the backbone for the book. But, and then I was going to just do the essays. And no, I should put it into a, chapter form. And so it was an evolution. Started it 4 years ago.
And then how did the book change once you got your diagnosis and started your own journey of treatment?
Well, it became easier to write about dying.
Easier?
Yeah, it did. Because with pancreatic cancer, usually people don't survive it, or they live 6 to 8 months many times. Although I think there's some advancing technology, and it might have been the tumor that I had was a slow-growing tumor, and but I'm out 2 years. Mm-hmm. I call myself a really fortunate guy because if I had died in 6 months, I wouldn't have had the book, and that was driving me. It really did.
All right, so you're doing the writing, you do the book, you do the television, you do the radio, and you're a small-town doctor, which means everybody knows you. The people that you're treating in the clinic are the people that you see at the grocery store, are the people that your kids go to school with. How did that change you as a doctor to have a practice that was where you were so connected with the people that you were serving?
Yeah. I think people who live in a big, big, big city and are anonymous can get away with not being accountable for their ways. I mean, in Brookings and in most towns of South Dakota, I think we're known enough where you better be on your good behavior most of the time, why not? I mean, I don't think that you should act in a way that shouldn't be typed up and put on the front page of the newspaper, and you wouldn't be put to shame. I think that it's important to be a decent individual, and I don't think it would have changed what I had done much, except I grew up in DeSmet, and everybody knew you. I got some anonymity coming to Brookings from DeSmet,
But you know them too, so they also can't really, come to you, say one day I'm going on a diet, and then you see them next night eating a pizza or smoking. Right, exactly. So how does that change the doctor-patient relationship?
When you catch them at something that you've been harping on for something, I mean, I don't think you ever benefit anybody by putting them down even an ounce. I think the most important, when I come in to the patient's room and I know they're smoking, and I've been harping on them, and the way I generally put it was, okay, now I'm obliged to really try to encourage you to quit smoking the very best way. Would it be best if I just left it alone because it's only going to tick you off? Or should I bring it up in a way that I should just nail you to the cross and get you very, push you really hard and do everything I can to make you ashamed of what you're doing? Or would you like a fact? How would you like me to say this? What would work the best for you to help you to quit smoking? And they would sometimes say, leave it alone. And sometimes they would say, hit me hard. Take it. I'll take it. And that's what you did. Yeah. But I think you treat everybody as a valuable human being. And when you're a primary care doctor in a rural community, you need to take everybody as a child of God.
This has a lot about fear and fear of death being bad for your health.
Yes.
And
it does, doesn't it?
Yeah, right? So talk about growing up, because in small town South Dakota, at the time that you grew up, your generation is confronted with the possibility of death at very young ages.
Yeah.
Tell me about that and how you sort of processed that as a kid.
So my dad was a World War II vet, And he was a technical sergeant, so that was as high as you could get in the non, whatever. There's this next layer where you become a officer. Well, he was a non-officer, but in World War II, I mean, that was a heck of a deal. And he came back gloriously buoyant by the fact that he was alive and survived 5 landings in the Pacific. And the next one was going to be Japan, which was a death knell. And his point to me was, don't you ever criticize the atom bomb, because you are here because of the atom bomb. Because if we would have landed, I wouldn't have been alive, and you wouldn't be alive either. But the atom bomb raised its ugly head, no question about it, in all of our lives. And in DSMET, we didn't do any drills about the atom bomb because we figured that if it came, we're dead, we're goners. And I asked my dad about a bomb shelter, no. And it scared me to the core that I'm going to die. And I mean, I faced death very early. And then, of course, it was easy boomer high, and everything was great, and I was on the football team, and we had a great group, and life was wonderful, and then my sister's killed in a car accident. And so I remember thinking, she was a Snoopy dancer from the beginning. She was this lovely, happy, always joyous lady. And I was little goody two-shoes, watching over every little thing and worried about this and that. I said, you know what? I'm going to Snoopy dance too. And so if you'll ask my wife, she'll tell you, I Snoopy danced from the beginning of our marriage, way before that, but mostly the time of our fortunate togetherness. And life has been a fabulous thing. So I thought about my life and my own death, and I'm almost 70, and I don't want to go, but I've Snoopy danced the whole time.
This generation has taken that fear with them. So you have an entire generation of graying America.
Yes.
There is a resistance there,
Yes.
denial there.
Yeah.
What can we do to make it stop there? How do you see it affecting the entire generation, the sense of fear of death?
Right. I think that the boomers in particular, but maybe some of the generation ahead of us, they're a little bit older, and definitely the generation behind us, are spoiled and pretty much want everything. And the danger we have, and I think this is, and I left a whole chapter on boomers, and that is that boomers who want everything are going to say to their kids, I never want to be in the nursing home, and you're going to have to do everything you can to keep me alive because they're so mad, the medicine is so good, and they're going to demand it, and there'll be boomers in the nursing home on a feeding tube, and unless they realize death is not so bad, make an advance directive, and go that extra route to talk about, if I don't know who my grandchildren are, for goodness sake, don't put a feeding tube down if I stop eating. Let me go. Dying is not the worst thing. There's a lot
How did you get
worse.
there from fearing death to being able to sit and talk about it and write about it the way that you can today?
Yeah.
So somebody who's afraid right now and says, okay, I want a Snoopy dance, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
What are some of the first steps to doing that dance and being able to talk about it and understand that we are surrounded by death because we're surrounded by life?
Yeah. Well, I think there is something about the spirit of humanity, the spirit that's in your eyes, Laurie, the spirit in the people that you talk with, there is God within them, that you sense your own spiritual self. I remember the spiritual self of my dad, but my mother was a wild, crazy lady. I mean, she had a spirit. She blasted into a room and you could feel it. Doug Bell, who's in the audience, will say that. So the point I'm making is that there is a lot that we don't understand. I remember my mother telling me this story, that my dad was on a landing in the Pacific, and she's in the middle of the night, and she wakes up, and she goes, "Oh my God, something is really bad happening. Oh, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. What could have happened?" And 2 weeks later, she gets a letter, and he said he survived another landing, and that it was really close, and he's glad to be alive. And she goes, "I knew it." You know, there's things that we don't understand. There's communication, there's connection between us that is beyond what we understand. And that gives me a great comfort. In our church, the wings of the hen, the mother hen of the church, wraps her loving wings around us. It's the warmth of kindness and friendship and laughter. And it just gives me a sense of, you know, this has been a great life, and I'm really not I'm not afraid of dying. I don't sense that it's going to be the end, or maybe it's a joining of something, or I feel, and I'm a good Methodist with a real inclusive, all religions are acceptable, and forgiveness is a great thing, and love is the center of it all.
And this is one of our questions from the audience, which
Sure.
ties into that, which is, what do you tell patients when they ask you, "Hey, doc, when I die, where do I go?"
And I give them a good, honest, nobody knows that answer, and our churches are trying to give us the support that there's something that's very good, and live a good life. And I think that that's comfort to them. I also believe in that pay it forward thing. I think, you know, people won't remember you or me 100 years hence. I mean, I don't remember we've got a list, but just a name. I don't know what the pictures look like or what their stories are. But we live on by the good deeds that we do other people, whether they know it or not, and that they would go on forward with good deeds for others. You know, it's that Wonderful Life, Jimmy Stewart type of thing. And I think that's a wonderful sense of worth and gives meaning.
And another question from our audience, how about those families who are in denial, and the loved one is at end of life and continue to demand the extraordinary care be given? The families are saying, we're not ready.
Yeah.
How do you manage? You must have seen that a lot in your practice.
I did, yeah. Well, I remember one particular man who had had a stroke, and then he lost his ability to protect his airway. So then he'd get pneumonia, and then they would put him on a respirator, and then they would give him antibiotics, and he got better. And then they would finally take the respirator out, the intubation tube, and then he would aspirate, and then get pneumonia again, and then it was a pretty miserable life for him. And they came to the emergency room, and the family was torn apart. Half of them wanted to let him go, and the other half wanted to save him. He can recognize them. And what I did was every morning I'd spend about 30 minutes with the family and talk to them about what his wishes would have been, and what is it that we can prognosticate, what is going to happen to him, and what would he want if he knew this was going to happen. And finally, they just kind of came around, and they all agreed after they heard, it was just a matter of being kind to all of them and respecting all of them. They finally said, okay. So they took out the breathing tube. They took away the antibiotics. I took them away per their direction, because that's what we need to do, follow the direction of the family. And then they wanted more more comfort. So turned up the pain medicine, and he slipped away gently. But the biggest success of that case was the family came together.
How much better have we got? Because some people, when they're facing the end of their own end of life, maybe remember the end of life of a parent
Yeah.
when the care wasn't what it is now, the end of life care, the hospice care, the
Yeah.
palliative care. Tell us a little bit about how much end of life care has progressed and what difference it makes for families.
Well, and we have in the audience Franny Arneson, who is a palliative care specialist and who's going to be on our show coming up in a month or so. I can't remember exactly when. And, palliative care is that ability to say to the family, okay, we're not going to get a cure here. What we need to do is to talk about comfort. And that's an important help for most of us who are technically driven to do all of the things to save a life, We've got the technology. We can keep this alive. We can keep this person alive. And the palliative care and hospice has been a wonderful thing for this country and for the world. I think it's swept most of the countries of the world, and that is to realize that we're all going to die. There's a time to let go of all that technology and to allow a person comfort.
What makes people resist hospice? Is it that they're resisting death, or do you think they just don't know what it's going to be like in-home hospice or going to, a facility? Is it
Right.
is it not knowing, or is it just they're really resisting death itself and they're afraid of making that step?
I think it's all those things, Laurie. I think it is it's the fear of the unknown, and I think people are afraid of death, and it's all of those things. I do think that we haven't been really good in the medical profession in helping people at the end because it takes more time to cut back on the treatment. There's no difference between taking a feeding tube out or not putting it in. It's the same thing. Once you put the feeding tube in, oh my gosh, we can't change the things we've done. Oh, that's not true. We can remove that feeding tube too. So I think there's a lot of learning and education and compassion, and we've got to give people time, and you have to give people support. And then when it comes down to it, it's the family's call. It's not the doctor, and it's not the hospital or the nursing home. It's the family's call, and the family should be respecting the wishes of the patient. And sometimes they haven't made those wishes clear.
Right.
But we need to try to encourage, particularly the boomers, to make those wishes clear.
Do physicians have to confront their own fear of their own death and the death of their patients? What about to healthcare providers in general? That has to be part of the job.
One of the reasons I went into medicine was to help me and my family to face the ogre of ill health. And so I think many people might have gone into medicine because they feared death, and maybe this is a key to get the very best care. But I think most of us, particularly geriatricians who care for older people, we've helped enough people through it. You go, I get it now. I get it. I'm going to do my level best to keep this person alive when there's a chance for a decent life. I'll do that. I'll consult the very best gastroenterologists and pulmonologists and oncologists and endocrinologists. I will get the best care that they can possibly have when there's a chance. When there's not a chance, then I'm going to do my level best to help the family through this time. And when we don't do a good job, and there was a big study called the support study. You've read that in my book. That talks about 50% of the time people were in pain. 50% of the people were in pain 50% of the time. Back in the mid-1990s when they did the study. So they went back, they educated all the doctors in these 5 national big-time teaching hospitals, and they encouraged all of the right things and respect for living wills and encouraged the living wills, and the repeat study didn't show one difference. But now we have hospice. Now we have palliative care. So I think we're getting better, and I'm hopeful. So we try to not be fearful of death, make some advanced directives, and then go with the flow.
How is it in South Dakota? Do you think we have enough hospice care in South Dakota? Is it the word getting out here in the rural areas?
Oh, I think we're really good here.
Yeah.
We might be, even better here than many other places. And, if you look, a surgeon came to Brookings and looked at how many, we're ready for a roll in it a little bit. He said, I'm looking at all your surgery in Brookings, South Dakota. It's a lot of surgery. It's really great, but you haven't done hardly any feeding tubes in this town. I'm really good at putting feeding tubes in. I can keep them alive, and we rejected that surgeon. Hospice isn't just a thing. It has many, many elements, all of which work best when they're in harmony.
First, they have to have a terminal condition that the physician feels that they have a 6-month or less life expectancy. And the second thing is that they're looking for comfort-focused care rather than curative-focused care. So if it's a cancer patient, for example, and they're doing active chemotherapy or radiation, they wouldn't qualify for hospice while they're doing that. But sometimes then when they finish those treatments, then we can look at hospice for them. So I usually tell people that there's 3 main things covered by the benefit of hospice. 1 is people, 2 is equipment, and 3 is medications. So that hospice benefit covers those 3 areas. As far as the people go, that's the hospice staff that will come to the home to provide care. And we're the support team for the family there. We're not with them 24 hours a day, but we teach them how to provide the care.
Well, it's a very rewarding role to play. I think most people who are use the gift of caring for people are very spiritual people. And so the thing I get to be involved in is helping our spiritual people take care of spiritual people at a spiritual time. When we're faced with a reality, or really it's always a reality, but we acknowledge the fact that we're not always going to be in this world. We're all going to make a journey at some time when our heart stops beating and our lungs stop breathing. We ask ourselves, what is the meaning of life and what is possibly in my future? So I get to walk with patients and families down that road. The goal that I have as their hospice chaplain is that they first not be afraid to make the journey. And the second is that they be at peace. And the third is that they find meaning and purpose in each day that they're given.
It's a special time for the family to be around at end of life. Not to say that it's an easy time, but it's important to be there for the family members. And our job really is to make sure it goes as smooth as it can. So we may be teaching them to provide the care. We might be facilitating a family meeting if there's some issues that they want to work through before the patient passes away.
In many cases, patients and families that don't have a faith connection are able to benefit from our program as well because they receive the spiritual care that they might not otherwise have. Part of my role is helping patients to come to terms with their own mortality and to help them to discover their spiritual and religious resources that they can then use in their care plan and in their specific needs at that time.
As a cancer patient myself, and also being surrounded by a lot of friends who deal with life-threatening disease, I feel like we have a little bit of change of attitude about all of this. You certainly don't take things for granted as much, and you try to live each day fully. But I also think that I personally have less fear of death as a result of my cancer diagnosis. It's certainly not a pleasant thing to have to deal with the treatments and the doctor visits and all the things that you go through. However, knowing that, that you're still here, you're still alive, you can still live fully, and then by not living in fear and not fearing death anymore, you can even live that even more.
I'm able and equipped to serve not only spiritual needs of our patients, but also the emotional, relational, and social needs as well. That kind of goes beyond the spiritual aspect of what we provide too. It's absolutely essential for families too. It's equally as important for families as it is for hospice patients, because a lot of times when the hospice patient admits to hospice, the family's already grieving and they're struggling with how they're going to deal with the situation with their loved ones. So the hospice team comes alongside them and provides that emotional support.
Most people are reluctant to talk about hospice, and they don't want to talk to us initially. But once they get on the service, they realize what a benefit it is to them, and oftentimes say, I wish we would have done this sooner.
And as soon as I knocked on the door, he says, "Come in here, chaplain, I want to show you something." I said, "Yes, sir." So he walked me back to his bedroom. He pointed to a clock that was up on his dresser. He said, "Chaplain, you see that clock? It was one of those old ones that had the flip dials that flipped the time minute by minute." He said, "Chaplain, many nights I'll lay awake and I'll look at that clock. 11:58, 11:59, 12 o'clock. I got another one. That's the way I live, chaplain." It's a pretty good way to not only die, but it's a pretty good way to live, to celebrate the gift of every sunrise and take advantage of all that it can give us.
We're talking about Life's Final Season, a guide for aging and dying well. So much more to talk about. We have questions from the audience here at SDPB studio in Sioux Falls, and a question here with Dr. Oppenheimer.
Hello. I just want to reflect on one thing that you talked about earlier in terms of family and death. And I've been a doctor for a long time, as have you, and we all deal with families who just can't accept it, and people who have relatives who are in the intensive care unit and on a ventilator and can't communicate or are in pain, and it can last weeks, months, and it's very, very frustrating. I wish every story was as good as yours was, but it's just not. I think it's just going to come to a society decision about what society wants, what's acceptable, beyond what the patient wants. One thing I wanted to bring up was we could talk about death and dying, but I think it's important for the doctor also to ask the patient what they really want as from the doctor. I see patients for a number of different reasons. One of the reasons I see them for is for thyroid. And they come to me and they may have a bump on their thyroid and they're afraid of cancer. And there are different reactions. I had one patient who was 90 years old, and I said, everybody has to die. And they said, how are you to deny me the opportunity to live longer? On the other hand, I saw a patient today who was 79 years old, and I said, they had a high calcium level. I said, we could probably fix that. It may not help you live longer, but it may open up a can of worms, which may make things more difficult and make it more complicated. And right now you're happy and feeling good. What do you want? Should we look further, or should we just say, we're okay?
Yeah, great question and comment. Thank you, Mark. I think about sometimes we really think about the right thing to say. We say, we all have to die one day, or you say, I think it wouldn't be the right thing to do any more testing now, and they get offended. Now, there's no matter how you do it, you can be the kindest, gentlest, perfect doctor, and you'll tick some of them off, because sometimes they want something from you that you didn't hear it. I just didn't listen hard enough, or I just didn't catch that. I do know that. But I do think that there's a time to quit doing testing. And I think we do too many pills, too, in this country. I mean, we prescribe pill after pill after pill. I mean, a doctor has a feeling that they want to give something for their visit, right? It costs them a bunch of money, or somebody a bunch of money. So here's a pill, you know. But we don't need to give that pill so much. We give too many pills. So I don't have a great answer for you, but I think that's kind of in the realm of what I wanted to say.
When my father was dying, one of the great gifts the palliative care doctor gave us was the time when she said, and I love her dearly still, when she said, it's time to say what you need to say. And we all looked at each other, my siblings and I, we'd already said it. Like, we were like, well, there's nothing left to say. We love you, you know that. Talk about those unresolved issues, though, because for so many, and here's one of my favorite things about this book. I mean, we're focusing on end of life, but really, you could read this when you were 18 and learn. You would learn a whole lot, not only about how to take care of the elders in your life, but how to take care of yourself with diet and exercise and how to handle medication. So there's a whole lot in here. But talk a little bit about those unresolved issues. If you know, how do you deal with those when all of a sudden the time that you thought you had, and not everybody's going to want to, I mean, your father might not want to deal with some of those issues with you.
I do think that there is a time at the end of a life where some people need to reconcile with something that they did in their past. It's a kid that they kicked out of their house one time, or it's a cousin that they had, done something to, or that you haven't seen your brother for 20 years because of the fight over the farm, or whatever it might be. I think we in healthcare should make every single effort we can to bring that reconciliation. I do think, however, that, what can you say? What's the best answer, the final words that we should say to each other? Well, I think, you just can't know that. You just make sure that they know that you're there and that you love them. And sometimes what'll happen is you're there waiting for them to die. The family is around the campfire, which is the patient. And everybody is waiting. And the patient is... they're unconscious, and they've stopped eating, so it's going to be 10 days from the time that they stopped eating and drinking, unless some emergency room doctor filled them with fluids before they came in, and then there's going to maybe some more days. But usually it's 10 days from perfect health to death if they stop drinking and eating. So the family's all around the center fire, and the patient's hanging in there, and they're going, why are you staying alive? And now the family's feeling guilty because they're feeling angry because it's such a long wait, and they're all wanting to be there at the time that he dies, and they're all hanging in there. Everybody's taking turns, and people are getting no sleep. And I generally say to them, and by the way, when my dad was dying, we went home. In fact, I was at a party, and I came back to the party. He wouldn't have wanted me to hang there. But anyway, what happens is, many times the person that's allotted to stay through the night with the guy, they get up and, I've got to go to the bathroom sometimes. So they get up, go to the bathroom, and then the patient dies. Because you don't want to do it when they're there. I always say, we all need some private time, don't we? Let the patient who's dying have their privacy, and help them with reconciliation if there is that. I've seen also, people will wait when they are virtually dead. They will not die until their daughter gets there or their son gets there from afar. Is she here yet? I remember in her 90s waiting for her daughter to get there. Daughter got there, died, 5 minutes later. So all I can say is, one of the things is, it isn't so magical. It isn't the end of the world. Make sure they know you love them. Maybe make a little music. And there you go. Go to the bathroom every once in a while. Give them some privacy.
One of my favorite chapters in here, and it's really kind of woven throughout the book, is this notion of giving back and realizing that something is not all about you. And the difference between a gentleman who is dying and has this sort of cloud of anger and hostility around him, and then someone else who is dying and has this generosity and openness, because it isn't all about, that's how you've lived your life.
I've tried to. I mean, people in the audience that are physicians know this. We spend our days listening to people, listening with every pore, listening to their stories, listening to their heart sounds and their bowel sounds and their lung sounds, and smelling the ketosis that they have when they come in, or the cigarette smoke, or feeling the liver when it's down below the costal margin, or when the kidney is tender, we listen. We use all our senses to listen to that patient. And pretty soon after doing that, day after day after day, you learn to be a good listener. And you learn that it isn't all about you, it's listening to that other person. And listening is the most profound teacher to love another person. So my hat's off to the medical profession, because for the most part, they can be, they are listeners. And they've learned to be a listener. And it's listening, if you're not in the medical profession, that teaches you to care for that other person.
Listening is the most profound way to learn to love another person. Tweet that, somebody.
Okay.
All right, this is an audience question. Out of everything you have accomplished, what do you most want to be remembered for?
Oh, I wasn't the best dad. I was busy like most doctors. But I got to be home for supper almost every night. And we would read, I would read to the kids. She had been with the kids all at this time. So I had time, so we'd go upstairs at 8 o'clock and read till 9. Well, the 9 got a little late, and 4 kids, we got into wonderful books. And it was joyous to me. And I think they grew from it. So if you were going to say anything, I would, as an example of a good guy, I would say, read to your kids. So maybe that would be my one thing. I try to listen to my patients and to care. And I'm not the perfect guy. And I've been sued. And I've lived I'm not the perfect, you do, I don't think I'd make it to the Supreme Court if you ask. So.
You might.
Maybe I would.
I think so. Tell me about the prayers again, because your children remember
the
prayer time.
So the prayer we would have at night was built on medical ethics. The first ethical principle is beneficence and non-maleficence. Do good, don't do harm. The second medical ethic that I think is so very important is veracity. Be honest. And also aim what you do on honest science. And the third medical principle that I think is so important is autonomy, that you respect a person's freedom to choose. That you may think that this is what they should be doing, but they're individuals. They have the right to choice. And that is guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. And there's other ethical principles like justice and so on. But I think the 3, do good and don't do harm. Be honest. Respect people's choices. The way I put it in a Dear Lord, help us to be kind and honest and respect people's choices. And let's be better people tomorrow. That was our prayer every night.
And they have not forgotten that as adults.
No.
Because at least one of them has told me that prayer.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a book about life. What are you going to write next? Because we want to hear what you're going to write for an audience.
Oh, I'm gonna write 3 novellas that will be a novel. The first novella is going to be 1400s, and there is a sailor that lost his parents, so he's on a ship that's heading for carrying cargo across the Mediterranean. He's caught in a storm. He's shipwrecked near Naples in Italy, and there is the first medical school. And at the first medical school, they were open. There were Jews and women and blacks and whites and males and females, and everybody had open information because they had discovered the Greek writings of healthcare that had been saved by the Arabs. And the Arabs had even made them better for 300 years, and then they were able to, Constantine was able to interpret that. So that's the first novella. The second novella is Hugh Glass crawling across the prairie, and an Indian woman medicine person and her tribe were heading for the Ree village where they had left their corn and all of the food crop, and they were going to harvest the food crop that had been left, and that health care. And then, of course, there was a little love between the woman and Hugh Glass. Pure truth. I'm sure it's the absolute truth. And the third novella is a med student in Atlanta, Georgia. So we'll see. Who can write a novel? I mean, a novel it's got to be pure entertainment. It can't be, filled with this, story of healthcare.
Yeah. So much in this book. The essays are my favorite part, but there's also questions, questions and answers. There's details, supplements, pain medication, so much more. You've given us so much, even in this last hour.
Thank you.
And certainly in this book. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of all of us, your readers, your listeners, your viewers. You are loved.
I really tried to make it entertaining enough for people to read it so they would learn. I mean, and of course, and entertaining is another story, where is that? But you try to write it so that people will continue to read it. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. Here? And now for the answer to tonight's Prairie Doc quiz question. In my book, Life's Final Season, the most important point about an advance directive or living will is 1, in South Dakota it must be notarized. 2, one should choose a durable power of attorney. 3, they don't work in neighboring states. 4, it's crucial to talk to one's family about one's wishes. 4. Correct. The answer is 4. It's crucial to talk to one's family about one's wishes. The support and agreement of the family is vital. They don't have to follow the living will. Family will say, do everything. If the living will said nothing, still the doctor's going to do that. They're not going to be sued by the guy that's in the coma. As a reminder, Life's Final Season is available on Amazon, at South Dakota Art Museum in Brookings, at Zambro's Variety in Sioux Falls. For updates regarding book availability and book signings throughout the state, follow Prairie Doc Facebook page. We'll be right back after this.
Welcome to your Prairie Doc Library at www.prairiedoc.org. Wherever you live or travel, you and your family can enjoy free and easy access 24 hours a day. Search for a specific topic. Browse through the television shows, radio programs, and blog page. You, your family, and friends around the world can learn from physicians and other health professionals answering questions on a variety of medical topics. Visit your Prairie Doc Library today at www.prairiedoc.org.
During the South Dakota Festival of Books, I listened to a group of 5 successful novelists discussing the art of writing and what they gained from creating those words. They all seemed to agree with the journalist Malcolm Gladwell, who said that it takes some talent, but more importantly, about
10,000 hours of practice to become good at anything. They each also said that writing has given them joy and humor, an understanding about life, and a sense of meaning. Hearing all this, I reflected on how much room I have for improvement in my own writing. On the other hand, I realized my compositions are not for a novel, but for self-help. And the goal of my latest book, Life's Final Season, is to help people during their aging and dying process. As opposed to a novel, my writing has a different purpose. I also thought how therapeutic my writing has been for me since my cancer diagnosis. There's a lot out there about writing as therapy. Orthopedic surgeon Dr. David Hanscom, in his book Back in Control, provides for us a writing method to help people in chronic pain. He advises those in pain to write down any random thoughts for 10 to 30 minutes once or twice a day for at least several months. Hanscom reports the theory that when pain becomes chronic, the signals change from damaged pain activity in one part of the brain to an emotional fear and anxiety response in a different part of the brain. Hanscom asserts that the daily writing exercise truly helps people break the pain cycle when nothing else helps. Professor Gilly Bolton also recommends a daily writing program for chronic pain. She says not to worry about grammar, style, or spelling, and advises starting by unloading and dumping negative thoughts, followed with expressive and exploratory writing about any topic. She suggests focusing on writing without distraction, finding time to do it once or twice a day, and doing it for yourself, not others. Her contention, writing helps us illuminate our own suppressed feelings, thereby helping people deal with chronic pain, depression, and the miseries of life. I truly hope my book helps caregivers and people who are aging and dying, but my writing has had the added benefit of helping me cope with a deadly diagnosis. A daily writing exercise may just help you too.
Well, thank you, Laurie, for guiding tonight's conversations, and thanks for our wonderful audience. It was fun to have everyone here to raise the excitement of the evening. Also, a big thank you to South Dakota Public Broadcasting for letting us use this wonderful studio tonight, and the professionalism and hospitality of their crew has shown our Prairie Doc family during this visit. Thank you. There have been some reports already that the flu season may be serious, like last year's. It's not too early to get your flu shot. It's important not just for you, but to help protect the people around you, particularly those who are immunocompromised or young people or old people. So that does it for tonight. From all of us here at On Call with the Prairie Doc, until next time, stay healthy out there, people.
So you wind up in an intensive care unit, and there are doctors you've never met in the hospital taking care of you. What happens in an ICU? Next time, On Call with the Prairie Doc.
All of us want our family, neighbors, and friends to have the ability to make appropriate decisions about their health care. To do so, they need access to information from reliable sources like Dr. Holm and his guest physicians. Hello, I'm Stephanie Herseth-Sandlin, and I serve on the volunteer board of directors of the Healing Words Foundation, a 501c3 organization established to support the work of the Prairie Docs. With your charitable donation, you can help the foundation continue to offer free and easy access to the entire library of Prairie Doc health education programs. This mission is so very important to rural communities and residents in particular, across South Dakota and neighboring states. Please consider a personal or corporate gift. Just go to prairiedoc.org to find more information on how you can help. Thank you.
Major funding for On Call with the Prairie Doc has been provided by
Avera is a proud sponsor of On Call on South Dakota Public Broadcasting.
Larson Manufacturing is proud to support On Call television as it continues to open doors for important medical information. And by the South Dakota Foundation for Medical Care, the Medicare Quality Improvement Organization for South Dakota. And with the ongoing support of these individuals and institutions, Brookings Health System, Ophthalmology Limited, American Academy of Family Physicians Foundation, and South Dakota Academy of Family Physicians, Avera Heart Hospital, Dakota Allergy and Asthma, CoBank, Fishback Financial Corporation, Vance Thompson Vision, Urology Specialists, Brown Clinic, and Black Hills Medical Society, Aberdeen District Medical Society, 3rd District Medical Society, 7th District Medical Society, Dakota Bank, Orthopedic Institute, Physicians Care Sanford Clinic Community Service Committee, Aberdeen Asthma and Allergy, and Swiftel Communications.